సెక్యూరిటీకి వచ్చేది. అది సెక్యూరిటీ వాళ్ళు జనరల్గా పోలీసు వాళ్ళు వచ్చారు కదా వీళ్ళకి అంటే వాళ్ళకి
recyclable waste to recycle units or upcycling companies. We also spend time conducting trainings for the conference. Notepad that you would see is surely taking us one notch above recycling, because the cover of the notepad that you see has seeds, and that is going to be a source of life which would last or maybe outlive all of us. All of us practice sustainability initiatives in our own small little ways. Whenever you get a chance to go through the stalls, do all beautiful ideas around the red and the blue lens. I'm not giving away way too much on that. Please do explore whatever you like. So the minute we say sustainability, we mean it and we practice it in bold ways. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Nice, nice. So all the young ones in this room, this entire dialogue might be between us, but it is for you. So the more engaged you are with this conversation, the better for all of us. So to all the young ones, please put your hands up in the air. That's why we are checking whether the audio is working. All the young ones in the room, please put your hands up in the air. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. So good job, audio team. Everybody's able to listen to me. Nice. A more sensible way of doing the audio check is to check whether people do follow us. The 6th edition, we might want to change a lot of things. We might want a lot of things to improve. But in order to do all of that, there is one thing that we consistently need on a daily basis across levels in our society. And yes, I'm talking about change makers. Whenever we have an event, we know the best way to start is by lighting the lamp, by driving away the darkness, ushering in new light. And like always, when we're dealing with Kakatiya Sandbox, they say, the ones who are living the change we want to bring about are the ones who should be lighting the lamp. So let me invite on stage 3 young change makers to light the lamp and say, we are ready to start the 6th edition of Beverly Dialogue in Islamabad. To the 3 change makers, please. the light up, ramp up, there was a little struggle. Ideas that are so important is no easy task. So please put your hands together as I invite on stage Manish Kumar Jaiswal, CEO of Kakatiya Sandbox, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Anish. Greetings, welcome, and good morning to everyone who has come from all the parts of India and the world to attend the development dialogue. It is a great pleasure and honor. Conferences logically or historically have been mega city concepts. They have been very urban concepts. And but we as an organization believe that if ideas of rural India have to be discussed, they have to be done in rural India with the right stakeholders, with the entire community coming together to rural India. Just like how we also want, if an idea is to be discussed of urban India, it has to be discussed in urban India with the right stakeholders. Now, there is one thing to think of this dream, this vision, to do a conference of the right stakeholders in rural India. The other one is to get into reality. It is the speakers, it is the delegates like all of you who have turned that vision into reality. And you have taken the pain to take multimodal transport, come from all parts of the world to make this dream into a reality. So I really welcome all of you and thank all of you for coming down here. Thank you. Thank you for coming down here. This year's theme, which is the 6th edition of Development Dialogue in Nizamabad, is Rural Yarn, Future-Proofing with Sustainability. Just like putting a craft on the moon was a very audacious goal for the entire Indians and for the humanity. I think if we have to future-proof our long future, we have to do it sustainably and it will be an audacious goal. Now when we talk about sustainability, it is just not a dream of an individual. It has to be a collective dream of the humanity and it cannot be done selfishly. It cannot be done in isolation, in silos, one for oneself. It has to be done as a community as a whole, city as a whole, nation as a whole. And the sustainability has to be about economic sustainability, just like how we would want India to develop in all its parts, just like how we want organs of the body to develop in all its parts in the right proportion. We want India also to develop in the right proportion, be it urban cities, be it rural parts of India. And I think today, as we go through the agenda of development dialogue, you will have 40 speakers across 3 venues in this conference talk about how sustainability can be brought in through entrepreneurship, through skilling, through agriculture, through philanthropy and through change making. And that is what you have gathered to actually witness today. Well, this conference, in a way, when I think about the composition, we have got 150 farmers, we have got around 100 women micro-entrepreneurs, we have got 150 students who are skilled and ready to be part of the workforce, we have got startups who are ready to create impact, we have got investors who are ready to put in money to see that social impact become a reality and so on and so forth. So I believe this is like a developed rural India that you can see the composition of this conference. Now, this is probably a fraction of what the entire population of North Telangana and rest of India is. But indeed, a developed rural India is a reality in this conference. And we can take that idea from this conference to rest of India through our support and partnership here. So I really welcome you all to go around the conference and talk to these farmers, micro-entrepreneurs, startups, young students, and take one story from them, share your insight. They are potentially probably your customers if you have a startup, they are probably your investee if you are an investor. Take those stories, those change, those impacts and thoughts, and if all of them culminate into an action that can lead to a sustainable world, I would feel that the idea of this conference is successful. So on that note, I'd like to welcome all of you to this conference and thank you.
hands together. Now is the a very interesting passage of time. I'll tell you why. Because I now have the responsibility of introducing somebody who surely needs no introduction at all. But now that it's a part of my deliverable, let's still go ahead and do that. Please put your hands together as I invite on stage for the founder's address, Mr. Raju Reddy, founder and former CS here at Atlanta, and more importantly, now the co-founder of Kakatiya Sandbox.
Thank you, Harish. Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing? Thank you. And I mean, you heard the short address from Manish Jaiswal. What a wonderful young man. Give him a big hand. We are so happy. Funny and I, Funny Sama, who pretty much I guess everyone here knows, had the privilege of starting Kakatiya Sandbox just about 11 years ago. I think it was in July 2013 that we started the organization, inspired by the work that Deshpande and Jayashree Deshpande have been doing in Hubli for about 5 years before we started Kakatiya Sandbox. And so the central idea there was about really improving income level in rural India. And we picked a close-knit geography, roughly 10 million people, that's about 1 crore. So everything we do is in just that geography, right? And so over the last 11 years, today I would say some of our programs have really gone beyond the original North Telangana districts that we picked. Some of that, in fact, I think we have some students from parts of Maharashtra and other parts of Telangana itself. So today I would say our impact region is roughly about 1% of India's population. And at a high level, there are 3 main elements of what makes a sandbox. One, it is the bottom-up form of socio-economic development. Meaning, unless the local people are an active part of the solution, these changes are not sustainable. It can be somebody sitting in Bangalore or Hyderabad, let alone Silicon Valley, that can drive these things. We can certainly catalyze it. We all can play a very big role. But I think through the course of the day, you will see that there are a lot of local people that have taken a huge step forward, and they are a very strong ownership. And I think last night, some of you were at the Thai dinner, you probably got a glimpse of that. And one of my sort of favorite development dialogue is a session called, a small segment called Dreams Have No Boundaries. So these are people coming from the villages and have transformed their lives, and some of them creating jobs for others. So that's an example of bottom-up form of socio-economic development. Second is using an entrepreneurial mindset to address social challenges. As my mentor and the founder of the Sandbox ecosystem, Dr. Gururaj Deshpande likes to say, if you can combine the compassion of the non-profit world with the execution excellence of the for-profit world, that's when you get really significant sustainable impact. And so I think you'll find that in most of what we do, we talk about kind of the metrics, and a big part of that is also building a strong organization that can attract, nurture great talent. And Manish is of course a wonderful example, but beyond that you'll find that there are several people now who are part of the leadership team in Kakatiya Sandbox. Many that have come from the villages, from this region, and of course quite a few from other parts of India. So I think that's a very important aspect. It can't always be just giving money, but philanthropic dollars that have a real impact is something that we try and look into with the entrepreneurial mindset. The third is scale. Country of 1 billion people, unless you touch a large enough population, you can make a meaningful difference. So roughly, as I said, today it's about 1% of India's population. The idea is if there are 20 such ecosystems, that's 20% of India and more like 25% of India's rural population. So then you start having a big impact, right? And So over the last 11 years, to me, I guess at a high level, there are three big takeaways. One, change absolutely is possible. Impact is very real. Today, I think we've touched about maybe 2 million people, about 20 lakh population. So we still got a long way to go. And out of that, I would say maybe about 5 lakh people. That's about 500,000 people where it's a life-altering impact. That's very measurable, where their income levels have gone up substantially, sometimes 2x or even 3-4x, right? So that's absolutely possible. It takes time, but it does happen. Second, I'm personally a big believer in the power of relatable role models. I myself, as a tech entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, I was inspired by people like Kanwal Rekhi, Deshpande and others. I said, hey, they can do, why not me, right? That's kind of how I started my entrepreneur journey. And I know there are a lot of amazing entrepreneurs here today who probably have a similar experience in their life. And I think the same thing happens at a micro level. When one of these young students from a village comes out and from a disadvantaged background, when he or she sort of gets a job and starts supporting the family, and some of them got into companies like Accenture and Globe and Google and others, it's amazing what it does to the rest of the children in that village. Children as in young adults, I must say. Or even when you find a progressive farmer in a village, if he starts finding a big difference with his work, it immediately propagates to the other people in the village. So I think over the last 20-30 years, we lost some of this cadre of young, positive role models that they can relate to in these villages. And I think in Sandbox, that's kind of what we've been creating over the last several years, and that can only accelerate. Once again, you will hear some of those stories. As Manish said, when you walk around the conference today, we have the farmers track, the students track, micro entrepreneurs, some of the booths here. So please, try and engage with some of those people. You'll find these amazing, wonderful examples of young change makers. And third is really, what all of you that have traveled from far and wide, from other parts of India and around the world, have a huge role to play. And many of you I know are coming back here for second, third, maybe fifth, sixth time. And people like Venkat Matella and Dr. N.C. Murthy and Shrikant Pakala, just names Sandhya Prakash. So thank you all for making those trips. Because when you come here and engage with the people here, many of you have been also participating actively with your ideas, talent, capital, and that means a lot. I just can't thank you enough. So please give a big hand to all those people that have been coming here. Because your ideas matter, your time matters, your talent, capital, everything, your network, that's immensely valuable to the people here. It's like local ownership with global talent, global resource. And many of you are here for the first time, and thank you once again for making that trip. And we hope to see you come back. And Nizamabad will be, and we will do everything necessary to make this a home that you can always come back to. Thank you once again, and enjoy the day and the conference.
Development that all of us are here for. Ideas are difficult, but converting those ideas into sustainable projects is a lot more difficult. Then you add the global dynamics to it, and another layer of complexity. Not just there, we also need to take care of the ecosystem being taken care of. So the social well-being angle also comes into the picture. Now put all of that together is the first keynote panel's topic, which is about rural yarn, the future-proofing with sustainability. And for that panel, as the moderator, we have Nizamabad's very own poster boy when it comes to entrepreneurship. And we also saw that little sustainability recycling thing that happened between you and Manish. And at the end of this panel, I'll ask people whether they can identify what was that. So please put your hands together. In company. Funny is young global leader, and he has appeared twice in the list of 40 under 40. That effectively makes you 20. Thank you so much for being there for everybody. And every time Raju talks about religion. So thank you so much for being the moderator. All yours. Let me then also introduce, as part of the keynote panelists, we have the US Consul General in Hyderabad, Jennifer Larson, amongst us today. She was previously Director and Acting Desk of the Office of India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan and Maldives Affairs. She also served 4 years as the Deputy Principal Officer in Mumbai, India. And prior to completing a year-long course at the National Defence University in June 2016, she was a sole spokesperson at the Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs. Ms. Larson served as the Principal Officer in Benghazi, Libya, and then Acting Deputy Chief of Mission in Tripoli. She has also served in Pakistan, France, Sudan, Jerusalem, and Lebanon. Please put your hands together as I invite on stage the Consul General, Jennifer Larson. Venkat has over 3 decades of engineering and management experience in developing differentiated products and building successful businesses. Prior to founding Ceramorphe, he founded Red Line Signals, a wireless technology company, $8 million. He holds a PhD in electrical engineering from IIT and is Mr. Venkat Matella, founder and CEO of Ceramorphe. Lakshmi Narayanan, founder and president, One Health Trust. A senior research scholar at Princeton University, is also associated in various capacities with the University of Washington, Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, and University of Scotland. Dr. Lakshmi Narayanan chairs the board of GARDP, a global product development partnership created by the World Health Organization. Ramanan Lakshmi Narayanan.
Into your work. We'll start with Venkat.
Good morning, everyone. So, my name is Venkat and I come from a small town very close to this place in Medak district. And I come from a very small village, but went to Hyderabad for college and started my own company in the US. This is my second venture I'm running. And I am developing a supercomputing chip. That is, it's so surprisingly in the title for today's discussion, sustainability. My company's caption is sustainable compute infrastructure. You might all know that ChatGPT, everybody uses it. But not many people know what happens behind it when you ask for a question. The machine is trained with the megawatts of power and the millions of dollars it costs just to train one time the program. So supercomputing is super important, but it's also required to be done with a very low energy consumption. So my company does chips, designing supercomputing chips, which consume less energy. That means it's related to the sustainability. I did not know this is almost like a marketing for my company. I was so excited when I saw the title, so I will be able to share a lot more, but that's what I do.
It's nice, Venkat. Consume much less energy than any other chip in the market. How's that? How did that journey happen?
Well, I think previously another company that is in the wireless space, and my expertise is designing energy efficient silicon engineering. And if you really use Garmin watches today, the latest Garmin watches, FX2, Phoenix 7, they all use my chips. But I carry with me the tiny chip. That's my lifetime accomplishment is 3mm by 3mm chip. And I spent 17 years with a lot of Stanford PhDs and electrical engineers creating that. And that particular chip is used in a smart watch. The watch comes for 1 year. So we are not talking about energy efficiency, a relative term. You can say always that whatever energy you are consuming, you could say it's optimal. But we are talking about a smart watch coming for a year. So that requires every component that goes inside the watch to be super efficiently designed. And that's what I've done. And the tiny chip, the 3mm by 3mm, is sold for a very nice price. And a lot of 200 people, we were all, I made everybody happy, including myself.
So how, 50% more?
No, good question. So in fact, there are companies in the wireless space. Number one company is, it starts with the letter Q. And we beat that company's chip, the best chip in the industry by 26 times. It's not 26%.
My God.
26
My
times.
God.
Because this is my lifetime accomplishment. tiny thing. That is the
My
chip.
God.
The chip. It took 17 years to develop the chip, and it does 26 times better than the best chip in the industry. And you cannot just say that you are better. You have to give it your chip to a third party and ask them to compare with the existing one. They produce a report. Because if you say you are better, nobody is going to believe. Somebody else has to say you are better. Or somebody else will be a third party benchmark. Today, if there are any entrepreneurs in the group, whenever you do anything, if you say something you are better than another person by 10 times, 20 times, nobody is going to believe that. So you have to go to a third party, ask them to compare yours with your competition, then it happens. That's what I've done in the previous company, and that's what I'm going to do in my current company.
Thanks, Venkat. Yeah, Jennifer. So, good morning. So, what do you do? What do you do as a US consulate, or what does this US consulate in India do? We all know we get a visa, but other than that, what else? What else does the consulate do, and what do you do personally, and why are you doing what you're doing? From a talk show to now bureaucrat. Yeah.
Thank you. So I actually got those. So I think the way that we're trying to work towards sustainability at the consulate here in Hyderabad with my team is building sustainable bridges and relationships with India and maintaining those. And when we're talking about sustainability, we're looking very far into the future. Our two countries are natural partners, and especially when it comes to thinking about things like climate change, sustainability in all the ways that you can think about it. What we do here is represent the United States to the Indian people and try to help us create and sort of prosper together. We have many consulates throughout the country, as well as our embassy in Delhi. What got me here years back and just had a profound sense of life. It changes your life when you're able to go and live in another culture. It is just absolutely life-changing. And I thought that's something that I would like to be able to share with other people. And so, for example, we get the chance to bring students from India to the United States for their studies, which in many ways is life-changing. And that's something that I'm really proud of and I'm really committed to.
Yeah, absolutely. I myself did a small course in Stanford, and I can relate to it so much. It's really life-changing in the way that I actually pursue studies now. It was a very short time that I spent there, but it's very, very different from what I had experienced all through my life. Thank you. Yeah. Ramanan, yeah. So, very inspiring. Actually, you are the first TED speaker, not a TEDx speaker. You're the first TED speaker that I'm like shaking my hands with.
So there'll be many in the crowd over there.
Yeah, looking forward to that. So, what do you do? And why you do what you do?
So that's an interesting question. So how many of you have ever taken an antibiotic? Raise your hands if you've taken an antibiotic. Teaching? Nobody's taken antibiotics? Antibiotics are the most prescribed drugs on the planet. Most prescribed drugs on the planet. We've only had them for about 80 years. But in the process of using it, we have destroyed their value because every time you use antibiotics, the bacteria become resistant to the antibiotics. And therefore we either have to change the antibiotics. So today the antibiotics that are being used are very different from the ones 30 years ago. They're also much more expensive. So a lot of my career has been around this one problem, which is on how you sustainably use antibiotics, because these save lives. Literally billions of lives have been saved in history because of having access to antibiotics in India, globally as well. Before that, if you had a bacterial infection, if you had even a small cut in your finger, if it became infected, you died. That was the outcome of it. I arrived at this place in a very different way. Of course, in my day job, I'm a professor at Princeton, I teach, I do research, I work on investing in new antibiotics. I chair a product development partnership that actually funds companies to develop new antibiotics. But I actually got to this problem very much in sustainability, which was my first passion and interest has actually always been the environment and sustainability, because in India, sustainability is not a choice. Sustainability is what we're inbred with. We don't really waste stuff because we don't have very much to begin with, right? So sustainability doesn't have to be taught to us in some way. In some sense, we have to be taught to not become unsustainable, right? We started from a good place, and it is a danger to move into the place where we don't want to be. Take these plastic bottles, for instance. You don't realize plastic bottles, with that same bottle will be here 500 years from now, and polluting the environment. This is not the way in which we used to be. This is how I arrived into antibiotics itself. In fact, I went to the US, thanks to the US consulate in Chennai, to study at the University of Washington, and I went there to study environmental economics. But in the process, I learned that there are many other problems to which you can understand through this lens of how you look at the environment and sustainability. And of course, I've applied it largely to one problem, although there are many others. But now the work is now expanded to a concept which we now call One Health. And One Health is the idea that our health, animal health, and environmental health are very closely related. Again, a concept that in India we know in an instinctive way, but is not the way in which most of the world lives. I mean, we take for granted that we can take as much we want from the planet, use as much as we want, but things will still be the same. We are now realizing from climate change, we're realizing from many other things that that is not the way it's going to be. And so that's really my journey.
Nice. But let me just plug in a sustainability conference, this is not a plastic
I'm so
commercial
happy
one.
to see that. I'm so happy.
That's a reusable glass bottle. And there are many other such things in today's conference, like this thing is again reusable, like you use and you have to drop it back in a box which they will reuse it. So these are some of the steps that like each one of us could do towards sustainable future. But why are you such an enemy of, what did you say, antibiotics? Like, if it's so bad, why are we all having it?
So this is a mistake, right? So antibiotics are very powerful drugs. You have to understand, before we had antibiotics, very simple things could kill us. But today, people take antibiotics just if they have a small cough. Now, how many of you know that viral infections don't respond to antibiotics? Antibiotics can only kill bacteria, not viruses. So some people here know this. But if we have a cough or just a fever, most of the time it's not a bacterial infection. So we are way overusing antibiotics in India, in other countries, and this is true in every country. It's true in the US, it's true in Europe.
What happens if you overuse it?
So every time you use an antibiotic, you're killing off the bacteria that are sensitive to the antibiotic, where you're only allowing the ones that are resistant to survive. So over time, the population of the resistant bacteria starts at 1 in 1 million, and then slowly keeps growing till it's 1 in 10, 1 in 5, then 1 in 1. Now, many antibiotics simply do not work in India at all. Even if you've never taken antibiotics, because someone else has taken antibiotics, but doesn't work for you at all. This has become such a big issue that antibiotic resistance now kills more people than HIV/AIDS. You've all heard of AIDS, right? More people than AIDS and malaria put together. It is the third largest killer in the world, antibiotic resistance. Particularly big problem for India. So every time we take antibiotics, we really should be careful and think about, is this really essential? Which is sustainability.
Yeah. And for me, sustainability was this environment, eco-friendly, don't use different definition of sustainability. Jennifer mentioned sustainability in inter-country relationships. Could you elaborate on that? Like, where does sustainability come in there? Right? I mean, the Prime Minister has changed, the President's changed, then altogether it's a different new ideology, different thinking, right? That's what democracy is. That's an advantage and the disadvantage of democracy. So how does sustainability, how can you sustain the relationships and what the previous Prime Minister has mentioned and etc.
Well, it's not, the governments do change every 4 years, every 5 years. Some places they'll never change. But what does not change is, I think, the understanding and the ties that peoples have built together. And for example, in the case of India and the United States, the India diaspora being so vibrant, so influential in the United States, there are certain things that you just know to be true, and we've seen that certainly in our own foreign policy towards India. It's been very consistent over the last 15 to 20 years, and I suspect, well, I know that it's just going to be growing in a much more convergent direction, and we feel the same here from our Indian counterparts. And I think why that's true, why it's going to be so sustainable, is because we're natural partners with democracy, with trying to limit the amounts of emissions that we're both pretty bad in this particular arena, and really trying to work together to be better. This may sound like I'm trying to be very optimistic, but it's actually very true. The type of work that we do together is going to affect for generations to come, whether that be education, whether that be working together on climate change, whether that be working together on maintaining the integrity of the geopolitics around us. It's just a really exciting time, I think, to be here in India as a diplomat, and it will carry itself, I think, and that's what I mean about sustainability.
Thank you, Jennifer. Why is sustainability become an in thing, right? I mean, when we all work for rural development, why are we talking about sustainability here? And why is the world talking about sustainability? I mean, your president, our prime minister, they're all talking about companies, startups, everybody's talking about sustainability. Like, why now? Why has that become a hot topic now?
I think we're in a moment and there's been a coalescing around this fact. I mean, I look at the wildfires, for example, in the United States, or famine, or desertification, or migration around the world, migration dependent on climate change. It's finally, I think, come to a point when all of the data points and all of the talking heads and all of the figures, to ignore them is to be foolish. And I'm the first to say that there are fools out there. But I think that especially, and you see this in the United States too, despite your politics, people who are coming out of college now, out of high school now, are much more focused on sustainability on the planet than perhaps you would have thought. There aren't very many political divides in between younger people in the United States on this issue. And I think it's because it's so urgent and it's because it's so obvious.
Thank you. On why sustainability becomes such like an imminent, it needs a solution right away. Yeah.
So I think, very high level, why it is a very difficult thing to accomplish is that it's not one person's problem or one country or one state. When we talk about sustainability, we are talking about the whole Earth, certain temperature, maintaining certain temperatures before the industrial revolutions. And it's very difficult to do because it's not one country is contributing, but everybody contributing to the emissions. And everybody is the owner for this. So that's one of the reasons it's very difficult to manage. And why now? Because you might be hearing about the thing that carbon neutral mandate. That's one of the critical initiatives. If the whole world owns this problem, that the problem has to be defined at that level. So that's why the carbon neutral thing came, saying that we have to achieve carbon neutral in the whole world. But the not so great thing about it is that everybody is given an option, saying that it's like an exam is there, instead of saying that so and so year we all pass the exam, ask everybody when you want to pass the exam. If I ask the question, I would say that I would pass the exam after 20 years. So for example, every country has a different number. China wants 2060. That means 2060 we want to be carbon neutral. India says 2070. Somebody says 2030. So the goals are right, but in terms of, there's nothing like you cannot enforce now. It's a common issue across the whole world, but everybody choosing to opt when they would be carbon neutral or a net zero emission. That's a very, one of the things is very important thing to note. And the other one, of course, is that you are seeing the temperature going up and certain things would not be great for any country. And that's the reason that it becomes important. And I see going forward, for example, you won't be able to use whatever the way you want to consume energy today. You can put whatever ACs, whatever computing, you can use whatever you want as long as you have money. And that won't be the case. You will be given carbon credits. That means if you want to write a software, you just cannot write by sleeping and drinking beer. You have to be very, very smart to write a small code which consumes a less amount of computing. And that's coming. It's a question of time. But you would not be asking somebody to write an application for you. You'll be asking them to write an application consuming only this many carbon credits. and you will be paying for that. And this is something that you can mark this one that you will be hearing that 5 years from now. You don't give a contract to somebody saying, here is my functionality. You would say, here is my functionality. You are supposed to consume only this many credits. And that's when that if you become an expert now, you will have a better credit going forward.
Wow, that's guide me. Wow, that's a very different future that we're seeing. Ramnan, your thoughts?
I appreciate what Venkat is saying. This is a very classic, what you call a tragedy of the commons. Somebody else is not doing something, so why should I do it, kind of an idea. But that is not going to get us to a solution because, the US is waiting for India to act, India is waiting for China to act, China is waiting for everyone else to act. Sustainability to me is a personal value. It is also a personal journey. So if you are thinking that I should do sustainability because it is something that other people want me to do, the United Nations wants me to do, that's not really why we do sustainability. Sustainability has to be an ingrained value which comes from, say when Mahatma Gandhi says, there's enough in the planet to meet everyone's need, but not to meet everyone's greed. That is really what sustainability is, which is that we're here for a short time, we consume just what is needed, but we don't destroy the planet on our way out. And that can be at a small level. It doesn't have to be at the level of fighting climate change, it doesn't have to be at the level of doing anything grand. If you start with that value, I think that you will find that sustainability is not just an act of generosity of you to the rest of society. It is something that will enrich you. It is something which makes a lot of economic sense in a lot of ways. When you reduce energy consumption in your house, you save the money immediately. Yesterday, very few of you people who know this, I didn't know it till yesterday. I was visiting a place called the Green Business Center that was set up by USAID and a few other entities and CII in Hyderabad. This is the first LEED Platinum rated building in the world. LEED Platinum is the highest rating of a building, and this was the first building LEED Platinum outside of the US, which is in Hyderabad. This is the first net zero building in the country, which is in Hyderabad. You should go see it because it really reflects so much of the way in which houses are typically built in India. And this is achieving the same standard that people spend so much money to achieve in other parts of the world. And I saw a quote from the founder, which I thought was very interesting, the guy who set up this Green Business Council. He said, if you can change the way in which you build, maybe what you build can change the world. And you think about it, every day we're doing these things. We're buying flats, we are buying cars, we are making choices as consumers. Sustainability is in those acts itself. And of course, from that comes the need for business opportunities, entrepreneurship. I'm sure Kakatiya Sandbox is doing amazing things where you can then build on top of it. But sustainability has to first emerge from within you, not because of listening to someone else or anything else. It really has to be a feeling that comes from within.
Got it. Thanks. And one of the counter arguments against for the sustainability is that it impacts economic development. Like if nobody is buying clothes, right, because they want to be sustainable, or nobody is spending money, or right. It's going to have a negative impact on the economy. What are your thoughts on that? Is it something to worry about, or what are your thoughts on that? What is the argument against sustainability?
That I agree with that from an individual level. Every day, what choices you make, you will come across. I think somebody asked at the end of the session, we are going to ask what Funny did. So he basically, used somebody else's quote. So he's reusing the quote. So he's not like having another new quote like that. So it's a reuse, recycling, replacing electrical energy with something else. So all these things are your own decisions. You can make a difference. It's not that government has to mandate. But coming back to this question of why is it not happening, there has to be incentive for everybody to do it. Nobody will do anything unless there is incentive. Suppose if somebody is going to give you more money if you sell a sustainable clothing, they'll make it. But if they make it and if nobody buys because the price is higher, they're not going to make it. So that's why sometimes it's very individual level you can do as in your control. and it makes a huge difference, by the way. But it comes to the other level, it has to be a lot more people have to be involved, different organizations, policy makers. You are involving everybody. Anytime you involve more than one is difficult. And if more than one is not your own, it's more difficult. So in this case, you are talking about some other agency. So it's almost very, very difficult. So I think that's what my take is.
Yeah. Two is Better Cotton Initiative at Sandbox. We worked with 1 lakh farmers in taking cotton farmers towards a pesticide-free free trade, to grow free trade cotton. And over there we could, the companies like Nike and Marks and Spencers and etc., they're willing to pay 25%, 30% premium if the cotton comes through a sustainable pesticide-free and child labor-free cotton. Yeah, those things are certainly, there is an economic incentive for that. Yeah. Any thoughts from you to add on to that? The counter argument. How do you counter the counter argument of sustainability?
You're asking to make the economic argument, and I would say that the moral argument outweighs the economic argument. I mean, if you're looking at like fast fashion and the way that these things are produced in these warehouses in countries like Bangladesh, for example, where the working conditions are very poor, they're getting better, that's for sure, because the laborers are asking for it. But if you raise those wages, produce less clothing, for example, a higher amount on the clothing. I'm not an economist, but eventually it's going to even out. But again, I think the moral responsibility outweighs the economic responsibility for at least in the short term.
This is what it goes back to the first point that Mehta made about why does anybody have to act? You're waiting for somebody to give you an incentive, which is why I said it has to come from within. But you think about where we are right now. We are in Nizamabad. There's a whole bunch of people who are here, not because there's any incentive for them to do it. Raju Reddy is here, Funny is here. You are here because you're in Nizamabad. You're not in Kerala, you're not somewhere else. This is the community you come from, and you care about this particular community. There are many examples. In fact, the first woman to win an economics Nobel Prize, Elinor Ostrom, what she won the Nobel Prize was to point out that very often communities will come together to solve problems and ensure sustainability because it benefits the community as a whole, because it is not just economics, it is that you care about what your neighbor thinks of you, right? So if you throw trash on the street, in Singapore you'll get a fine, but even without that they won't do it because you know what the neighbor will think of them. In the US, Jennifer knows, all of you know it. Nobody will light up a cigarette in a party, even if it's in someone's private house. Why? It's considered rude to do it. So it is not just about economics and money and incentives. So when the trend changes, where someone sees someone not wearing sustainable clothing, or like I tell you, Funny, you're using plastic bottles, and I never drink out of plastic bottles, so I'm glad you give me a glass bottle to drink from. These are incentives which don't come just from money exchange. They come from the way in which we treat each other. And that's why these solutions will emerge from places like Nizamabad, because you have a strong community here. People are connected to each other by ties that are beyond money. And most models are like that.
On time, if there are any questions in the audience, okay, there are the hands already ready. Yeah.
Why we should be sustainable? So that point is not brought out here, which I would like to bring here. We're trying to make it sustainable, because today, if you are not sustainable, okay, we are spoiling the fertility of the soil. Okay, that's important. If the fertility of the soil is not there, tomorrow we can't grow food. Okay, the food will become a big challenge. Second thing, why we are doing sustainability? The air is polluting. We're not talking about that. Tomorrow, the next generation, we have to make the masks when they come out. We have to be sustainable because we are polluting the waters. We are polluting the waters. So that's where I think sustainability is required. Whatever the actions we do, be sustainable. Today we are doing this convention. All the trash which is coming out has to be sustainable. That means it has to be composted into the soil to become a fertilizer. That's the point. Thank you.
perspective, you talked about equating animal health with human health, right? In that same length of strength, you would also have to equate with plant health also, right? Because at the end of the day, plant health, animal health would depend on plant health, and plant health would depend on eventually affecting human health as well. So I'm curious, why did you choose, equate human health with animal health per se?
What I was trying to commission on One Health, there's a WHO commission on One Health. It is this recognition that human health is connected to environmental health, which covers plants as well as animal health. At one sense, you go to any farmer outside here and you explain this to me and say that's the most obvious concept in the world, right? Why are you having a UN commission on this? You could have come and asked me about it, right? But you take COVID. COVID really triggered this for a lot of people. The idea that diseases could spread from bats to humans that were connected in that way. Most people have never heard of this word called zoonotic disease. Today, many of you know that word. But this is the world, I've always lived it, which is we're always concerned about these kinds of spillovers. We're always concerned about, I'll give you an example again of plant health, an idea. For many years, fungal infections in the Netherlands were not treatable. They were highly drug resistant. They couldn't figure out where this drug resistance is coming from. Then they realized it was because that same antifungals were being used on the tulips. Tulips are a big crop in the Netherlands. They were using them there. The fungus was becoming resistant there, transferring to the patients and killing people in the Netherlands. So there are many such examples. At a gut level, I think most of India understands this. Most people around the world understand it. But we need to now develop the institutions and systems that embed this in a strong way. So that is what. Thank you.
Can you explain the connect between the miniaturization, the extreme efficiency that you spoke about, and sustainability?
Tough one. You asked this. I'm just guessing on my own understanding. And the gentleman who mentioned that we did not discuss about the sustainability at the highest level. All the problems that we are talking about with the polluting the water, everything if you take down, there's only one thing, that's the temperature of the whole earth. Body is designed at some certain point, that is changing. Because you cannot have multiple problems for the same. So that's the root cause of that one. Every sustainable thing becomes, you consume energy. Energy is not going to come free. That means you have to do something. When you do something, carbon dioxide will be emitted. So that means everything comes to the one. If you have to have the one problem, it's not that we do not understand what is the sustainability for. It's only one thing. It's not 10 things. All those 10 things will be mapped to this one thing. Similarly, now potato chips.
No, potato chips was the...
I mean, when I say that I'm making energy efficient chips, just for everybody's reference, 31% of the world's all the energy, the carbon emissions comes from my industry. That is all these tiny electronic chips that you use everywhere. For example, your cell phones and everything you see all around. 31% of the emissions comes from semiconductor industry. That means 31%. So when anything I do to reduce that, I am trying to reduce at the application level. This 31% comes in manufacturing of these chips. It's nothing to do with what application I'm changing, whether your watch or some IoT device. So that is the context. It's a very, very big thing. When we say that we are going to reduce the energy consumption of particular device, a chip, it's big. And chips, when you talk about potato chips, by the way, potato chips cutting also has a certain work has to be done. Anytime you do a work, that is going to have some energy consumption. So it's like if you can do that without working, of course if you eat the potato without cutting, that's going to be more sustainable than cutting it.
Good one, good one. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, there's another Green Matter Foundation. I think we will eventually, and we are starting to hit limits in the world of physics, chemistry and biology and mathematics on all of this. At some point, you need to start looking at the need side and the demand framework. Do you think as a civilization, as economies, as a species, we are ready to relook at the ideas of convenience and demands in the chase for sustainability?
That's a demand. What do you expect from life in general? If your life ambition is that you want to drive a Mercedes, and everybody's life ambition may be that, there's not enough ability of the planet to sustain that kind of a living for everybody in India to do that, even if you could afford it, right? So we know that not every Indian, if every Indian consumed the way that every person in the West did, the planet will be over tomorrow. So it is clear that these have to also come from a change in preferences, have to come from a change in values. And this has happened many times, it's not a new thing. For many years, lots of things were made of ivory, right? Ivory from the tusk of elephants. Today, you will never see ivory anywhere, which is a combination of preferences changing, but also the fact that it is illegal in many places. And I suspect that our journey here will include us changing our demand-side behavior, recognizing what provides us value. I think COVID has taught a lot of people that health is a value that you take for granted until you don't have it. You take the countries that do the best in health. It's not the United States. It's not even Canada. It's places like Costa Rica. It's places like Kerala or Sri Lanka, where they have prioritized values of health and education above, just a GDP growth. And I think that transition is coming. It's happening. That people are realizing, what do I really care about for myself? What do I really want? And then they sort of, adjust. And I think that demand-side framework will also adjust. And then there will be a new supply-side framework that is there to meet this kind of demand-side framework. When people want to have geothermal pumps in their homes, when they want to have campuses that are, net zero, then being this will actually be a value in and of itself, regardless of whether I get a carbon credit or not. And I think that will come far before when we actually have carbon credits that are available to people.
In so many countries, and from your current role, you have a great perspective of the world around, right? So what are the, did you come across any case studies where action towards sustainability was positive, right, resulted in positive results?
A lot of that work would be often undertaken by NGOs. For example, when I was living in Sudan, those who know what desertification is, and those who know what violence can happen after people are trying to get the same very, very small resources. There are NGOs that are stepping in to say, to try to provide solutions that the government can't, for example. That's just a very small example. This is on a global scale, it's very, very difficult. I think it's just the unsung heroes that you see them everywhere. And that's one of the things that we try to do, is to seek them out, to see how we can be of assistance. Which is one of the reasons, to come here today to such a conference like this, is to understand what's going on and what are people's priorities. And so I would say that there are passionate and somewhat empowered individuals in all of these places. We're trying to do our part in Hyderabad. We have a new building we just opened, and we're hoping to get a LEED Platinum certification as well. Completely sustainable. We harvest the rainwater. We have a wastewater treatment plant. We produce our own electricity. That's one building. But I think across the globe, we have to listen and work with those who really know best, and they are there. It's just to find them.
Nice. Go ahead. Yeah, I think there's a question there.
Opinions. I'm Deepika, managing Green Skills and Sustainability at 1M1B, which is the United Nations Accredited Foundation. We are closely working with Government of Telangana and TASC. So the main umbrella that we work under is the 17 SDGs, being the 17 important problems that the world is facing. So my question is to Jennifer. What is the role of US Consulate in advancing these 17 global goals?
I think we take it sort of part can do. But it's through small grants that we do. We have USAID programs, for example, that are working on. There's a project that I really like, not far from here, called Trees Outside of Forests. We're working on better access for women in the workplace. Also, a lot of English language programs, we've seen that there's a need for, and all of these contribute, I think, to these things in some small ways, but we haven't really put them into those 17 categories necessarily. When we are supporting small businesses, for example, in and around Telangana, whether it be through a grant or whether it be through a training opportunity or sending somebody to the United States to learn from that particular industry there. I think those are some of the ways that we're supporting this, and I hope that answers your question.
The great panel. Director of Sujit Starch Mills and a charter member of Time Reservoir, please come up on 5-acre campus. We're talking about 75,000 SFT, and Kakatiya Sandbox office is obviously going to be there. So you want to see that standard? Don't go too far. It's going to be coming up right here. So Ramanan, the 10 people who didn't put their hand up when he asked about antibiotics. We thought the question was, how many of you are on antibiotics now? That's the pandemic, and that's the epidemic you're talking about. Thank you so much. Lovely having all of you here. Thing that happened, did anybody notice that? Jacket. Ajay. Right, we're the only ones. So both of them swapped jackets. And I think that's a great example of, yeah, go ahead, capture that. Let's capture this moment when it goes back to the right person. Because it's for the first time the panel keynote is absolutely done, spot on time. It's exactly 10:45. I'm happy to invite you on your coordination. Now it's also time for people. Because we know a few things that are absolutely very important to us. Our charter, which is starting in the other sessions. So people who are...
So if you explain me what is house, what is house used to here. Thank you. Right.
spending excess money than they needed, and in long term it makes the soil less fertile and more risky. But with this data, they can easily find whichever is not getting sufficient water or sufficient leaf or other part. So that can definitely make their life easier, and they can
మీరు ఎన్ని పండిస్తున్నా అన్ని పండిస్తున్నా చాలా కష్టం